So have you ever been told this? Your tires are cupped and need to be replaced. Guys, my name is Rick and this is the HDVIBE channel. If you spend a little bit of time with me today, I'm going to cover a few topics around cupped tires. First of all, we're going to talk about is what really is cupping. How do you know if your tires are cupped? Why did the tires cup? And lastly, what can we do to try to prevent our tires from cupping and getting the most mileage out of them? And we'll get into all that right after this. So that's right, guys. I was recently told that my tires are cupped on the Road Glide Special. And that's why you don't see the Road Glide Special in the last couple of videos, because it's still in the shop. And I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why the tires got cupped on that motorcycle as we kind of go through the video. So first off, let's just talk about what is cupping. So in its simplest terms, cupping is really just uneven wear on your tires. It's not just the normal, the tire wears down very evenly just because of the mileage that you put on it and the riding that happens on those tires. It's really this uneven or sort of a scalloping of the tire. And you can kind of see it or maybe feel it, but it's just really uneven wear, and it can happen either in the middle of the tread pattern or either on the left or the right side of the tire pattern, depending on what is the cause of the cupping on the tire. So two, how do we know if the tires are cupped? So there's a couple of ways that we can figure that out. So one, you can sort of visually look at the tire, right? So maybe getting it up on a jack stand and letting the tire rotate and watch and see if there's any unusual look to the tire pattern, or just inspecting it, just looking at it. If it's really bad cupping, a lot of times you can see it. The other way you can do is actually feel it. So you just kind of run your hand across that tire in the middle and both sides and see if there's anything that feels unusual, where you kind of feel that ridging or that scallop effect on the tire. So that's a couple of ways, sort of visually or feel. But there's also ways when you're out on the bike that you might be an indication that there is some scalloping on the tires. So if you're out riding and you go into a curve and you have some scalloping, it could be on the front or the back tire, especially on the side of the tire. You might feel a little bit of a vibration as you're going through a curve. So you kind of get that feedback coming back up through that suspension into your handlebars, and you'll feel that little bit of vibration. Now the other way, oftentimes you can feel it too, is you'll feel that vibration, but you'll also hear an odd sound. It almost sounds as if your wheel bearing is going out in your front tire or your rear tire, but really that could be another indication of a cupped tire. It's just sort of that zzz, zzz, zzz type of sound, and you'll hear that and think, wow, it sounds odd. I've never heard this sound, and I actually did hear that sound on my Road Glide Special. So you might hear it when you're riding the bike or feel it when you're riding the bike. So now, why did cupping happen? There's a lot of different reasons, and I'm going to cover those here in a little bit of depth. So the first reason that it could happen is your riding style. So do you just primarily ride highway that are nice and smooth? The likelihood that you're going to get cupping is probably slim and none, unless you have another issue sort of mechanically with the bike. So, but if you're more aggressive rider, you're riding a lot of twisties, maybe those twisties are not the smoothest of roads, and your suspension and your tires are working really, really hard to grind you through those curves and move you through those curves and trying to maintain maximum traction. Sometimes that can lead to some cupping on the side of the tire versus the middle of the tire, because you're going aggressive in those curves. That suspension is putting all of that pressure potentially maybe on that front, and then it's lifting up and then maybe putting more pressure on the rear as you're kind of coming out of a curve. So your riding style, aggressive riding style, can lead to some cupping on those tires. The other riding condition or style that could lead to that is heavy braking. So heavy braking could be doing some trail braking going into curves when you're doing that more aggressive style riding, or it could be just heavy braking when you're out on the road, right? Are you waiting to the last minute to brake, which then puts more pressure on that suspension, which causes that suspension maybe to have more flex and potentially create that cupping effect on the front or the rear tire? So there are some mechanical things that can lead to cupping on your tire. So it could be suspension, it could be your wheel itself, it could be the braking system, including the rotors or the calipers or your brake pads, anything that causes that wheel to rotate in an unusual pattern, up and down or side to side, could cause that cupping in the tire. In my case, on the Road Glide Special, there's a number of things that are going on. They believe that potentially the hub where the rotor connects to the wheel is out around, which is causing the rotors to warp, which then obviously causes the brake pads to wear unevenly, which then causes the tire to shimmy and shake, which then could lead to this cupping. So that's all going to is in the process of being taken care of, and hopefully I'll get the bike back soon. So, and lastly, and one thing that we can really kind of keep an eye on ourselves pretty easily if we're doing our T-clocks is tire pressure. So tire pressure is critically important to obviously getting the longevity out of your tires, but also to prevent them from cupping. So if you have too low of tire pressure, those sidewalls are kind of flattened out and can cause an uneven pattern or cupping on the sidewalls. If you're overinflating, that could cause some challenge on the middle part of that tire and get potentially cupping. So I will say, try to maintain whatever your motorcycle manual says in terms of the tires for your bike. In the case of these Harley Davidson Grand Touring bikes, the front should be 36 to 38, and that's cold PSI. On the rear, 38 to 40. The other thing, and lastly, this is pretty uncommon. I mean, it could literally be the tire. And when I say the tire, did you put the wrong tire on your bike in terms of size or width? Or even put in a very inexpensive tire because you're thinking you're saving some money. But typically, if you use a good branded tire like a Dunlop or Michelin that is suggested for these Harley Davidson touring motorcycles, typically it's not the tire, it's something else that has gone wrong, either mechanically, you're not airing it up, your riding style, etc. So, you know, my experience is Dunlops. I run the stock tires on my motorcycles. I've gotten anywhere from almost 20,000 miles out of a set of tires to, on the Road Glide Special now, I've only gotten about 9,000, and that's probably because of some of the mechanical issues. Again, I didn't have that bike for the first 3,000 miles of its life on those tires, so I don't know if that individual was running the proper tire pressure, but I always try to check my tire pressure before I go out. I use that Air Moto, which I'll have a link to the video up here. That mini sort of smart tire pump that's rechargeable that I can carry on the bikes. It shows you what the PSI is. It takes just a second. You set it, pump those tires up, and it's a quick little check. On the new bikes with the Boom GTS system in the TPMS, and that you can actually see what your pressure is before you go. How can we prevent some of these things? So it sort of is the opposite of some of the things that create it. So first of all, I mean, obviously properly maintain your bike. Make sure you get it checked out, or you check it out, and make sure your suspensions are set properly. Make sure you don't have any leaks in your front fork seal so the front suspension is working properly. Set your sags properly on your rear suspension. Set your rebound properly so that the tires are staying in contact with the ground. All of those sort of mechanical things that you could, make sure that you're doing your preventative maintenance. Make sure that you're running proper tire pressure, doing your T-clocks. Use a good quality tire on your bike that is the right size to fit your bike in terms of the diameter. Obviously, that's pretty impossible to get the wrong diameter on it, but the width, the speed rating, the type of tire tread patterns, just make sure that they're on the right way, because there is a right and wrong way to put those tires on. The tread pattern, there's usually an arrow on there also. And then make sure you're getting good quality tires. Like I said, brand name tires specific for your motorcycle, not some knockoff. There certainly are tires that have harder tread versus softer tread. But if you get a good all-around tire, it's going to be good for rain, for dry pavement, for rough pavement. You know, your Dunlops, your Michelins. I'm not endorsing any of those. I run the OEM. They work fine for me. So I go with that. So those are some of the things you can do to kind of prevent this cupping. So we've covered a lot of ground, guys. So if you feel like you've gotten some value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, consider sharing this with your friends, someone who might be interested in learning more about cupping, how to find it, how to prevent it, what are some of the reasons that it happens. Share that with your friends. Also, if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe. Just hit that subscribe button, and when you do subscribe, because I can't see who necessarily subscribe, I can see the numbers change. Leave a comment down there and say I subscribe, so I can then personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. And also leave some comments down below. Are there some other things that you've done to kind of see if you're getting cupping or prevent getting cupping on your tires, so that we can share that in the community? Others can see those comments in addition to the things I've talked about today. I'd really appreciate that. Also, I've got over 160 videos on tips, tricks, rides, reviews, and installs on my Harley Davidson touring motorcycle. So I'm sure you'll find something else out there that is of value to you. I cover a gamut of things. And with that, I want to leave you guys with this. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.